Y'all, this is Amelia and this is Bae. I'm sorry, I'll let you introduce yourself.
So, I am Bae, I am Emile, and I've been summoned here through the magical powers of mahogany.
I summoned you here. Okay, y'all, so I could not do this video without having my better half with me, having Emile, because our story wouldn't be our story without both of us. So it just only seemed right to have him in this video. So as promised, we together are going to share with you our story about how we met and how we got to this point where we are now. We've been together for almost, we've been moved in with each other, living together for almost about 2 years now.
Yep.
So basically how I'm going to do this video, I'm just going to ask Emile a series of questions and we'll kind of like talk with each other through the questions and just share with you our experience leading up to this point. You ready, babe?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
First question is, how did we meet?
So we met on a dating app, a special dating app for the girls, if you know what I mean. Remember, I really was on there with not much expectation, and I was really just, I put, I'm looking for friends, and what I meant by friends is like, I was like friends, like real friends, not like friends with benefits. So,
right.
So, because as they'll learn that I wasn't even near your vicinity when we met on the app, so it had to be just start off as a conversational thing. Yeah.
Who contacted who first? Okay.
Well, you contacted me first because
I did.
I
slid in those DMs.
I got a message, a notification saying I had a message, and I look at the message, and all it was just a pair of little eyes, emoji eyes. And it was like her saying, "Oh, I see you."
I was scrolling down the app, just looking at pictures of guys, and his picture popped across my screen, and I was just like, well, this fella's interesting looking. Like, you know, I thought he was like very handsome. At this time, he had like big curly hair, so like his hair was like out to here, and it was like really big, and he looked like a lion. I remember just like, and I was like, oh, like he's very attractive. And so, yeah, so like you said, I slid in them DMs, y'all, and you responded.
And I responded. I'm not sure what I responded. Must have just said hey, and we chatted very briefly, I remember, until I think we exchanged numbers so we could just talk.
Yeah.
And I remember I called you, or you called me.
After my function.
After your function.
Yeah, because I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just want to tell them where I was.
Okay.
Set the scene.
Okay.
So, this particular night, I was out with some coworkers. We were just like having some drinks and having some food and just, you know, just kicking it. And I remember like texting him the whole time that I was out with my friends. And when I left, I remember it was like kind of like late, and I was on my way back home, and we talked like the entire way back home. I think I had like a 30-minute drive back home, and so we were just chatting, and we continued to talk like for hours, but the conversation flowed.
So yeah, the conversation was easy, and I felt like you were good company to me. I felt like you were providing me, you know, great conversation and
non-judgmental ear.
Non-judgmental ear. You had a lot of good advice, and that's one thing I noticed about you is like you sounded like a sound mind, like a sane mind. You had a lot of good advice and things, and I thought that was great.
I remember like the first night that we talked, I thought he was a nice guy, but you know, of course we had shared like intimate details about each other's lives, and so like, you know, I was still getting a feel for him and trying to see like, you know, is this someone that I should like, you know, be like giving more attention to, or is this somebody that's just gonna be like kind of like a pen pal, like a buddy, somebody I could talk to from time to time, because he had good conversation. So I was still trying to figure this out in my head, but we kept talking. We talked like every day.
And I didn't have expectations either. I was enjoying the friendship and the conversation, and I wasn't really thinking too far ahead. Because I had just gotten out of a relationship before we met, I wasn't really looking necessarily too far in the future, other than just like, this was great conversation and we get along really well. And keep each other good company.
Yeah. And y'all remember, like, this was the time where I wasn't really super wanting to focus on guys. I was in school, had my own place. Like, I was just enjoying, like, getting to know me, but I was still open to getting to know somebody else, like, having a friend. That's what I really want. I think we both said on our profile that we were looking for friends. Neither one of us was really, like, looking for a relationship. And honestly, and you can piggyback on this, but I think that's really the best way for two people to meet, is really have as little expectations as possible. Obviously have, like, your requirements for how someone treats you just as a human being, as far as, like, respect and honesty and things like that. But, like, as far as expectations on the relationship, neither one of us really had those in the beginning. And so it just allowed for us to get to know each other and build our friendship and build our bond.
Yeah, I was in the space of mindset of open mind and not necessarily wanting one specific thing to manifest, just being open to the idea of talking to a woman of the trans experience.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we continued to talk for a couple months, and I guess this leads us right into the next question, babe. How did we meet, or when did we meet for the first time?
So the first time we actually met in person, or on...
The first time we actually met in person, because we had FaceTime, like, up until the point that we met in person.
So the first time we met is in Vegas, and we both flew out from where we lived. I was in California and you were in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And we decided that Vegas would be the place that would be kind of like in the middle, even though it's not. It's closer to the West Coast, but that's where we decided, and we both ended up meeting after we flew out and met each other there.
So we decided that we would meet up in Vegas. I was actually planning a trip with some of my homegirls to go to Vegas because I had never been to Vegas before. And while in the planning process, like, all of my friends bailed. So I was the only one that was going to be going to Vegas. And so I mentioned it to Emil, and he was just like, well, maybe that could be, like, a place that we meet. Mm-hmm. That could be, like, the first time that we meet. And so I remember we started planning our trip to Vegas together. And I was looking on Groupon, and I was trying to find, like, deals on, like, hotels, activities while we were there, because I wanted to get the full experience and I wanted us to be able to have a good time. But I remember also being really nervous, like, leading up to our trip, that you wouldn't actually show, because there were times, like, where I would make plans with people or whatever, and they would flake, like, they would fall through, or they would just not show up, like, at the last minute, or cancel at the last minute. So I was kind of like, afraid, especially since, like, we were so far away from each other. It was our first time meeting. I was a little, like, anxious leading up to it. I didn't know if he was gonna chicken out and, like, not show. So I remember, like, checking in with him, like, even the day of, like, hey, are you sure you're gonna show? Like, and he did. He was assuring me. He was like, I'm not gonna bail.
I never ever thought about bailing. I mean, there might have been times where, like, there's a little uncertainty, but never enough to have bailed on the situation. And I was more committed than you thought.
I guess so. I mean, he was authentic. That's one thing that really, like, stuck out to me about Emil. He was always honest. He was a good communicator. So, he wasn't, like, making me wait, like, hours to respond to, like, my texts or my calls. When I tell you, like, we were sharing, like, intimate details about each other's lives, like, it wasn't, like, all pretty. Like, it wasn't all, like, oh, like, I was the perfect person. And, we were, like, very honest with each other about who we were. And I think that honesty was what essentially, attracted us the most.
It wasn't a situation where I was trying to impress you by making up some story, like about how my past and who I was, and and so because I was saying, okay, I'm out here to get to know someone and possibly make a friend. I laid my cards out on the table, and this is me. Yeah, and I said some things that probably didn't paint me in the most pristine picture.
Yeah.
But I think everybody who's lived life enough, you get to a point where you have past and you have things that people carry with them. So I was honest about mine.
We both have past. So what were your first thoughts when seeing me?
The first time I met you, I saw you. I'm going to preface the first time I saw you in person with the first time I saw your picture and then your face when we were FaceTiming, because that's all I could see for about a good month and a half to 2 months. So I thought that she had a beautiful smile. I thought that she was very beaming in the face, and you were really nice to look at when we were FaceTiming. So you kept a smile on my face.
Yeah.
And then when we finally met in person, I just got to kind of be in the same space, and kind of you get to size each other up, and because you don't really know, you send pictures, but you don't really know how
the full picture
of somebody being in next to them, standing next to them, and seeing how tall they are, and
it's a difference. Yeah.
So, but we saw each other, and I remember we just hugged each other, and there was a little awkwardness.
There was a little awkwardness in the beginning
because we were a little nervous.
Yeah, we were both nervous. I think anytime you're talking to someone for a long time, whether it be over the phone or through text or internet or whatever it is, if you're meeting someone for the first time in person, I almost feel like the longer that you wait, the more nervous or awkward you can be.
We had this bond that we had formed over a couple of months.
Right.
But the physical aspect of being in the same space, we hadn't adjusted to that.
Right.
So I feel like the first time we actually met.
And that's something that we have to talk about, because I think whenever you are talking to someone long distance, when you're first meeting someone, even though you guys have been talking for so long, it could be kind of awkward in the beginning. So you can tell them about that.